Hey, what's happening, metalheads? Dave Cruz here, your humble host of the Covenant Metal Show, and I am here with a very, very good friend of mine, our very first in-studio guest, Mr. Dorn Reppert from Darth Plumber Promotions.
Yeah. It's my pleasure to be here with you, Dave. I've looked forward to this for many, many months.
Oh, yeah. So, back in the day, you promoted bands, you managed bands, helped them get shows and gigs and things like that. You got to do a lot of traveling with bands, and then after some time, I guess you kind of walked away from that, but you recently got back into that after Immortal Fest last year.
Yep.
So why don't we start with back in the day? How did you get into doing all that back in the day? And what bands did you work with?
It's, I'll tell you what, it's kind of an enigma to me in how did I get involved in it. I just really liked the early days of Christian music, Christian rock. There weren't a whole lot of harder bands back then, but it seemed like every time I bought a new album, it would progress. And I got to the point where I went to work for a little college in eastern PA called Valley Forge Christian College, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. And while I was there, I met a lot of students, and we all had the same preferences or the same tastes in music and things like that. And so we'd talk sometimes, and I'd say it'd be really cool to bring a show here to the school, which it was an Assemblies of God school. They weren't really into Christian rock at the school. So I just thought it was one of those things that would never happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, however it happened, I ended up hiring Petra to come and do a show at the school in their full 750 seat auditorium. And the majority of the administration wasn't into it, but the president at the time, one Robert Ashcroft, was a really cool guy. He moved there from California, and he had some more progressive tastes as far as music goes and that. And he gave me permission to bring Petra into the auditorium, and I did. And the Petra story is one that could take forever for me to tell, so I'm not going to get into everything we went through to make that show happen the night it was supposed to happen. But as I was standing in the back and I saw all the people that came in, and we packed the place out, standing only. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, wow, the college doesn't even have a presence here. And all of these potential students came to see this show. So I called up the Dean of Men and I said, Frank, I said, could you come over here to the auditorium, come over to the chapel auditorium and check this out? I said, because I think you could really use this for your marketing. And he came over and he looked at it and he said, well, what do you have in mind? I said, you should have a table here with information. You know, there's people here that might be interested in coming here to school, because the college had almost closed. They were down to 150 students at the time. And when I came there to work, they told me I probably wouldn't have a job after September. They were thinking of closing.
Wow.
And so anyway, he called up some people and they got info over and set up a table and just had such a good time that the school actually took it over, and it became called a breakaway weekend that they would have every year and invite all the churches in the district to come in and bring their young people, and for potential attendance at the college. And so that worked out. So that's how I got started. But the bad part of it was I picked the right band to do first, because Petra was hot at the time. And we packed that place out, and I am thinking to myself, Dorn, you were meant to promote concerts. You were meant to promote concerts. Look what you did. Look at all these people. You have to keep doing this. Well, I shouldn't have listened to myself. I should have probably quit, but I was too, I don't know what you call it, hard-headed. I didn't like to admit that I might be wrong, but the next show I did, I lost my shirt.
No.
And I ended up selling a car to pay for it.
Oh, wow.
That's how bad it was. But did that stop me? No, it didn't. I kept on going for about 11 years, worked with 51 bands, and as the bands, the type of band progressed, it got harder and harder and harder till pretty much all we were doing was heavy metal.
Wow.
But at that point, we had moved to Pottstown Senior High, which is about 20 minutes away from the school. They welcomed us with open arms, let us use the auditorium. I think they only charged us like $150 a night to use it. And actually at one point they double booked with the symphony, and they kicked the symphony out and left us do our show. So that's
Now, if that's not metal, I don't know what is, man.
that's how I got involved. That's how I started doing it. But 51 bands, so many, I almost have to have my list in front of me to remember them all.
Oh, man.
But the likes of Res Band, we did do a 3-hour Phil Keaggy show, which was incredible. It was his only band concert of the year. Servant, Jerusalem, Randy Matthews, Steve Camp, Rick Kua, Baron Cross, Believer before they were signed, Bride before they were signed.
Wow.
I say a lot. That's because I'm giving myself a pause so I can think.
No, that's cool.
But Bloodgood, Daniel Band twice. So many different bands, but it was awesome. But in 11 years, we never broke even again. That first show really messed me up. But we never broke even again, but no band left town without getting paid because God provided. And that's the main thing. When you're doing what he wants you to do, he takes care of it.
Oh, yeah.
He provides. So no pride in what I did because we couldn't do it. We couldn't provide.
Right.
God provided it. So anyway, glory to him.
Absolutely. So after 11 years, did you just decide, okay, I've done this long enough, or was it, something changed and you just kind of had to move away from it? I mean,
well, just before the 11 years was up, it was about 1988. We started thinking about moving. I was going to leave the college and we were going to relocate, which would have taken us out of the area where we were promoting.
Oh, okay.
But in the meantime, we had been listening to the horror stories of bands on the road. And believe me, the stories touched my heart. I could probably do 4 or 5 shows telling stories about what happened to bands while they were touring, how they were treated, what they gave up, the sacrifices that they and their families
That still
made.
happens even today.
It still happens today.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, right now in this period of time, it's almost worse than it was back then. But I had a friend from Dix Hills, New York. His name is George Pepper III, and he called me up one day and said, "Hey, we've always talked about starting a record company because we wanted to really do right by the artists." He said, "I've got the startup capital if you take the business end." And so we got together and Image Records was born. And over the next, I say up until about 1992, we had 7 bands on our roster, a few others that we would have really liked to do, but didn't get around to it. But I relocated, the concert promotion ended, and we just ran the record company for the next 6 or 7 years, and that was full time. So it required a lot of traveling. We did a lot of recording out in Seattle, well, Seattle suburbs.
Okay.
But the first band we recorded was a band called The Reach. They became In Reach later. We signed a band called Zion, and I have to say, the Zion Thunder from the Mountain album, no band excluded. Zion Thunder from the Mountain was the highest amount of charted singles off an album for that whole period.
Wow.
No other album ever charted more singles in the Christian metal market. And it was really, really cool. Zion actually captured, the first song that was released was Is It a Crime? In 2 weeks it went to number 2. and I think it was the Allies came in and bumped them away from number one. They didn't get the number one single, but over the next couple months, they actually had a number 4, a number 5, a number 9. I think they charted 5 singles in the top 10 on the CCM charts.
Wow.
And then we found out that the CCM magazine was going to do a metal chart, which they had never done before.
Mm-hmm.
And Zion, Kicking the Gates, was the first Christian heavy metal number 1 single.
Nice.
So I fight with tendencies to be proud about certain things. I was really proud about that. I thought it was really great.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But anyway, that was pretty cool. Really enjoyed it. One of the other things was in the CMJ College Music Journal charts, it actually charted as the number 5 top metal album in college play.
Wow.
And that wasn't Christian college, that was all college. So it actually hit the number 5 album in college play.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, here we are. So we had a record company at that point. And then things started to go downhill because I found out that Christian music was almost more dog-eat-dog than secular.
Yeah.
And a lot of things happened that really soured it for me. And I completely dropped out of the music business.
Okay.
And that was it for quite a few years. The last show we did when I was promoting was Sacred Fire, Jimmy Bennett's band from Georgia.
Okay.
That was the last show we did, and I'm a big Jimmy Bennett fan. I just think he's an incredible singer.
Oh, yeah.
And just still listen to his music today from that period.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, and in contact with him quite a bit too. But I left music and became a contractor, built houses, went back to being a plumber because I was Dorn the Plumber, which that's where Darth Plumber comes from. Everything that I did in Christian music was somehow related to plumbing. So anyway, that's where all that came from. So
wow,
big period in between.
Yeah, and so if anybody needs a deck done or a toilet plunged or whatever, just give it.
I'm great with electrical work.
That too. He said something earlier that he's because he was noticing, this and checking out my house and whatnot, and I was telling him how my TV is up against this one wall and there's no outlet there, and Darth's like, I could do that. You run up and run the line through here and do this. Because no, you'd have to fly me out from Pennsylvania, but I could get her done. So I was like, all right, cool, I never know, man. So fast forward to Immortal Fest last year, 2022.
Well, let's go.
I see.
Let's go even earlier than that.
Okay,
when I found out that Bloodgood and White Cross were going to be doing a show together in this little town, which I thought was pronounced Versailles, Ohio, which found out later.
Well, if you're in France, it's Versailles.
Yeah, but from a very angry desk clerk at a hotel in Versailles, I was corrected, vehemently corrected.
Oh, yeah, they must get tired of that.
Yeah. So anyway, when I found out they were going to play a show together, I thought, wow, this would be a great time to go and meet some old friends that I hadn't really had a lot of contact with in recent years. White Cross, when I did their show, they weren't even signed yet. They were being signed, and I didn't know about it, but it was the very first show they played outside of Illinois.
Wow.
And so I actually had intended to offer them a contract, but somebody else beat me to it.
Wow.
But anyway, when I found out about that, I decided to make a 9-hour trip and go meet these guys, see them. And when I walked in there and met them, the fun, the rekindled memories and friendships and everything it was just great. And met the venue owner, at the venue owner, Steve Barhorst, and he came up to me because he saw me wearing a Daniel Band shirt, and he said, "I've been trying to get a hold of those guys. I'd like to do a show with them." He said, "And I've been trying for months and don't know how, no contact information." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, your shirt. He said, "Daniel Band. I want to get them here for a show." And I said, "Seriously?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you want to talk to him?" And he said, "Well, I'd like to, but I don't have any contact." I said, "Just a second." I got my phone out and I punched a couple of numbers. And, "Hello, Michelle? Yeah, this is Dorn. Is Dan there?" "They're just coming out of Home Depot. Give Dan a second." So handed the phone to Steve and they talked. And that was one of the first bands signed for September.
Wow.
For the first Immortal. And it's really cool. When I found out all the bands that were going to be playing there, I knew I had to make the trip again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, at this point, Rex Carroll had contacted me a couple times and said, "Dorn, we'd really like for you to manage White Cross." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And I said to him, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "The trauma of the 80s with my wife being the accountant and seeing everything that happened when we didn't break even, didn't make any money at it, she'd probably leave me if I said I was going to get back into music." Now, I had recently retired. I had just retired in July of that year. And anyway, Rex kept calling me and I kept refusing him, and then he sent the personal assistant on me, and she was calling quite a bit and saying, "You really need to work with these guys," and I kept saying, "No, I'm not interested." And then September happened. And I went there and reconnected with so many people. If you ever hear the term metal homecoming, that was the first Immortal. And
that was a reunion, yeah.
I look forward to the two this year because it's going to be even better. Because now we don't have to make new friendships. There's already friends there. So we're going to have those friends there and then meet a lot of new people. And when I say making friends, it's people that have been on my Facebook for years and years and years, and I've never met with face to face.
Right.
This is one guy here. We were friends. We've talked quite a bit, but
it was funny. Last year's Immortal Fest, I was standing there. I was talking to somebody, and I feel somebody to the side of me. I see somebody out of the corner of my eye grabbing me and pulling my head towards them, and they gave me a kiss on the cheek, and I'm like, "Who's kissing me?" And I look over and I'm like, "Hey," and he's like, he's standing right there. I'm like, "Dude, what's up, man?"
I was hoping you wouldn't tell that story, bro.
Oh, it's all right. Honestly, if it was...
all I could think was, how can I shock this guy?
If it was anybody else, I probably wouldn't be like, "All right, man." No, but, take you all back. And you won't come back. No. But yeah, it was... there was something very special about Immortal Fest last year. And like you said, yeah, it was a homecoming. It was... There were people there that I hadn't seen in a really long time, people who I had met before, and then people who, like you said, friends on Facebook, never met face to face.
Yep.
Boom, and it was funny. I was talking to one guy, and must have been talking to him for about 5 minutes, right? And finally, I was like, "I am so sorry, man." I'm like, "What's your name?" And it was almost like he got offended. He's like, "Dave, you don't know who I am?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm sorry. I don't, because you might talk to, somebody by name.
Yeah.
You're either good with a name and not a face, or you're good with a face and not a name."
Yep.
Well, me, it just depends,
Yep.
And because, people change their profile picture all the time. And if your profile picture is a picture of a dog or a flower or something, then how am I supposed to know what you look like? I'm not going to stalk your page and go through your photos and go, "That's what you look like." No, I'm not going to do that. But it was just funny, "Dave, you don't know who I am?" And he told me his name, and I'm like, okay, I know the name. I didn't know the face. But
so let this be a lesson. If you come to Immortal, wear a button with your Facebook icon on it.
No. You need one of those stickers, those red and white stickers. Hi, my name is,
Yeah. And I'm your friend on Facebook.
My name is Ino Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Man.
Now you opened up a whole other avenue here, because that is probably one of my all-time favorite movies.
The Princess Bride. My wife loves that movie too.
Princess
Oh my
Bride.
goodness.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, Immortal. The concept was all Steve Barhorst, and he made that happen, and it began a revival. Old bands. I'm an old guy, so I can say old guys hitting the stage and rocking as hard or harder than the young generation, and proving they still had the chops, proving they can still write good music, that it's very, very necessary for today.
Oh yeah.
And the lives that were touched, I know it's been said several times on the different pages and groups on Facebook, that it was a time of prayer. I mean, incredible prayer. I remember at one point I was walking through the venue. There was no show happening at the time, but people were just milling around looking at the merch tables and that. And somebody comes up and taps me on the shoulder, and I turned around and they said, "Do you believe in prayer?" And I said, "Absolutely." They said, "Would you mind praying for somebody?" I said, "Not at all." And they took me over, and I just talked to Syke Mochek the other day, because I get him mixed up with Ricky.
Shout out to Syke. He's my brother too, man. Love that guy.
Ricky, the guy that played bass for Les Carlson.
Okay.
I get the two of them mixed up. I don't know why, but I get them mixed up. I actually talked to Syke the other day, and I said, "Syke, correct me if I'm wrong. I prayed for you because your knees were hurt." And he says, "No, I think that was Ricky." I'm like, okay. So I prayed for Ricky, and never heard what the outcome of the prayer was. But all I can say is, everywhere you walked, there were groups of people praying for one another. Even if it was just for, "Hey, I'm leaving now. Well, let's pray before you go."
Yeah.
And pray for traveling mercies and things like that. I never saw such a large family reunion before in my life.
Oh yeah.
Just hundreds and hundreds of people that were related through our hearts.
Yeah.
Through
our real brothers and sisters in Christ. Absolutely.
It was just phenomenal. And like I said before, I think this year's two Immortals are going to be even better.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be even better.
Because I think, after last year, the word really got out.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people that they found out just how special it was and how epic it was, and people are like, "Oh man," and they're like, "I regret not going," and it's like, and then I was telling people once I found out that they were doing it again this year. I mean, I knew they were, I knew it would happen again, and as soon as I found out, and then I found out that there was going to be two of them, I was telling people, "Get your tickets.
Yeah.
Get them. You got to go. If you missed last year, even if you went last year, come back.
Yeah.
Come back."
It's changing quite a bit since last year. That's why we had to go to 2 weekends.
Exactly.
I mean, if you figure the lineup that was there in September, virtually every band is coming back.
Yeah.
Either
they
in
are.
July or September. But then you add the likes of One Bad Pig, Deliverance,
Theocracy,
Disciple, absolutely. Disciple,
Yep.
Ex-Sinner with special guest Zion,
The Brave,
The Brave,
Glenn Kaiser,
Reign of Glory.
Oh yeah, how could I forget
Reign
that?
of Glory. I mean, and you look at the pedigree of the people in that band, who they played with, this and that. And
White Cross Saint. Yep.
Oh my gosh! And I am really, really looking forward to One Bad Pig. My oldest son actually skated on stage with them at Cornerstone.
Oh man, nice,
He
nice.
and his buddy were skating around the fairgrounds, and somebody said, "Hey, you want to skate on stage with a band tonight?" And it turned out to be One Bad Pig.
Nice.
And actually talking to Paul Kupek, he said, "Do you think you could talk your son into coming and skating on stage with us?"
Like,
And I said, well, he's 48 years old now, and he still does skate, but I doubt if he'd want to get up in front of everybody and skate on stage. I called him up. He said, absolutely not, Death. I can't do that. And I'm like, okay, that's your chance. Immortality. But, but looking forward to that.
cool. It's cool when you're 14, not when you're 48. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was, they skated, and then at just the right time, they did a stage dive out into the crowd.
Oh, man. See,
Could've
those are
killed-
memories that last a lifetime, man. Stuff like that.
Could have killed somebody with the skateboard, though.
Say what?
When they dove into the crowd, they could have killed somebody with the skateboard.
Oof.
I didn't even think about that. It probably wasn't the best move to do, but nobody was hurt.
Oh, thankfully.
Nobody was
yeah.
hurt. Deliverance is one that I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's a funny one too, because my four-year-old son at the time, we're in the hall that they were doing their show on, and I'm standing all the way in the back, and my video camera batteries were dead from videotaping either Vengeance Rising or The Crucified the night before, so I couldn't have my camera there. And my wife comes over to me, she said, oh, isn't that cute? Look at that little boy up on stage diving. And I looked up and I go, oh, yeah, wait a second, that's Zach. Aren't you watching him? Here he had gone all the way to the front and was up on the stage, and he'd dive into the crowd and they'd catch him and then gently put him back down on the stage.
Get up and do it again.
Yeah. So, anyway, that was the highlight. So all these bands that have such great memories for me and the chance to get there. And one thing is, I posted not long ago just a little blurb saying we're all getting older, and none of us are guaranteed tomorrow.
No.
We don't know whether we're going to be here today, even today, later, like 5 seconds later, whatever. It's accorded unto man wants to die. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's how your favorite artists are too. They're getting old. We lost Michael Bloodgood last year.
Yeah.
How many others have we lost? Ted Kirkpatrick, and all these different artists are gone. And I'm looking at the lineups for Immortal this year and thinking, who's next? Is this the last chance I'm going to get to see these guys?
Yeah.
To hang out with them.
Even more reason to go.
Yeah, talk to them. I mean, how many people are saying, man, I wish I would have went to that place in Ohio back in February last year. If I would have been there, I might have been able to sit and talk to Michael one more time.
Yeah.
And I feel so blessed that I did get to spend that time with him.
Yeah.
Before
Right.
he passed away. A massive loss to the Christian metal community.
Oh, yeah.
But we glory in the fact that he is with his Lord. He's achieved the ultimate prize.
Oh, yeah.
He's achieved the ultimate prize. But
one day we will too.
Yeah. But it doesn't make it any less
Oh, yeah. No, it's
hurtful for us.
Well, we still miss him.
We miss him a lot.
Absolutely.
So that's, if I put a plug in for Immortal right now, that's a big reason to go, because these are guys that it's history. It's like you said, it's epic.
And in some cases, honestly, if it wasn't for Immortal Fest, most likely some of these bands would never have gotten back together to do any shows.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Immortal Fest. And Dorn was telling me earlier, because last year's Immortal Fest, there we go. I just noticed this thing was like totally in my face. Dorn had pointed out to me that last year, Barren Cross, they technically they weren't even supposed to come play, and they had never really planned on doing any more shows after what you said 2013, and sure enough, they decided, okay, we're going to do Immortal Fest, and that was my main reason for going. Yeah. I love Barren Cross, big fan of them.
Yeah.
And it was like I would have missed them if I had not gone last year. I would have never ever have been able to see Barren Cross, and same thing this year. Who knows? Some of these bands this year might be the last time that they play any shows. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually talked to Paul Cupack a lot about One Bad Pig, and would they be interested in doing any other shows if some would come up, and the chances are slim to none that they'll get together again.
Yeah. So there you have it.
I'm not saying they won't.
Right.
But because I was absolutely convinced Barron Cross would never perform again.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that they did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so thankful that they did. And that was probably one of the big highlights was just hanging out with Ray.
Oh, yeah.
Ray Paris and Jimmy Laverty. We spent 2 hours telling stories, recounting stories from back in the day when I actually spent a couple weeks with them and hit the road with them. And it was so funny, that the things that we remembered.
Oh, yeah.
I can't really go into right now.
some of that's like wait for the book to come out, right?
Yeah.
wait for the Hallmark movie.
The book is actually done.
Oh, the book is done.
The book is actually done and formatted and ready to be published. If there's anybody out there that'll publish it for free, because I don't feel like paying to publish it.
There anyway, you have it.
But
tales from the Dorn side.
Tales from Plumber Productions. Tales from Plumber Productions.
But it's the same thing like with Deliverance.
Yeah.
Jimmy and those guys, they get together once in a great blue moon and we'll do a show.
Yeah.
And they are also one of my all-time favorite Christian metal bands.
Yeah.
And I've never got to see them, so I'm really looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah.
And now I have met them before. I've met Jimmy, I met Glenn, and Jim, and Victor. I met all those guys. I even met Mike Grotto. I met him in 2017. Really cool guy.
Yeah.
And they were playing at a festival when I met them, but we had been outside in the heat all day, me and my wife and a friend of ours. Well, my wife and our friend, they ended up with heat exhaustion. So it was real late at night, and by the time Deliverance was getting ready to go on, we had to leave because they were just ready to pass out.
Yeah.
The ladies were, so we had to leave, and I was pretty, I understood, but at the same time I was kind of bummed. I'm like, man, Deliverance, I don't get to see my favorite band.
Yeah.
So I did tell myself, that if I ever have another opportunity to see Deliverance, that I will definitely go and see them.
Oh, yeah.
And sure enough, I had already, planned to go to Immortal Fest this year anyway, but after making that decision and then finding out and it was finalized that Deliverance was coming, I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
Heck yeah,
I tried to.
Excuse me.
Well, I have to say, of all the bands that I contacted for Immortal, Deliverance was the hardest one to get in contact with.
Really?
And didn't know who to contact between Jimmy and others and this and that, and kept reaching out to different people, but to no avail. And then somehow somebody got in contact with Jimmy Brown, and had him call me. And we started talking, and he wasn't real sure that they wanted to do it. And I said, here's a selling point. I said, you're going to rekindle relationships. You're going to meet up with people that you might not have had contact with for a long time, and you're going to love it.
Oh, yeah.
I said, because it literally changed my life. It made me feel so much more complete. And this and that, and slowly as we talked and then he got in touch with the guys and they decided to do it. But will it ever happen again? I don't know. There's no guarantees. There's absolutely no guarantees.
Yeah. And
it's for those of you that keep sending me requests for putting into the lineup, the list is
higher than he can reach.
That's right. The list is long. And it's whenever somebody nobody's really backing out at this point, but whenever somebody would, if they back out, somebody else slides right into that position.
Oh, of course.
So quick.
Yeah.
I mean, and
there's always a plan B, C, and so on. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the Brave is playing is like one of the highlights. I loved reaching out to those guys.
Yeah.
The first contact with Reign of Glory, it didn't look like there was any chance. Things really had to fall in place for them to come, and I was so stoked when I got the call and say, "Hey, are you guys up for it? Do you want to play?"
Mm-hmm.
And they jumped on it. There was no discussion. It just happened immediately. But the thing is, like I said before, with the bands that have been added to last year's roster, it's mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-blowing. And,
now, speaking of that, though, because you had told me the story, and I'm sure these guys, they don't know, but something kind of like happened at Immortal Fest last year that got you back into representing bands again and helping get them gigs and stuff.
well, it was Immortal Fest itself.
Oh, well,
By the
okay.
time I left there, and I mean, meeting Christian Sullivan, and I mean, meeting people that have been friends on Facebook for years.
Love you, Christian.
For years.
Love them.
Same here. Just meeting these people face to face, having people walk up and say, "Hey, I'm so and so. You're Dorn, right?" And it's not that I feel like I'm famous or anything, but people remember me. It's like somebody coming up to you and saying, "Do you know who I am?" And it's like, no. How can you not? We're friends on Facebook.
I know, but like, it's just, it gets, you can't help but feel embarrassed when that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, I will say this ahead of time. If you, I can't speak for Dorn, but if you see me at Immortal Fest, if you come up and say hello, obviously, you know, we'll chat, and I'm gonna be friendly. I might even give you a hug, but if it seems like I don't know who you are, please don't be offended. Okay, my memory is like oatmeal sometimes. Okay, and it's mushy, and so, you know, don't get offended. Just, you know, Dave, I'm so and so, and I either know you by your face or I know you by your name. Yeah.
That's the thing. But the question you asked, that's what got me back into it. By the time Immortal was over, and I had hung out with White Cross, I remember at one point I was standing, a new band was coming up to do their set, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder. There was a lot of shoulder tapping going on. At least nobody kissed me. But
yeah, there is this year, man. You never know. I might just sneak up and give you one. Yeah.
Well, now that opened it up for everybody. But anyway.
Ooh, yes, challenge.
No.
Challenge. I am going to challenge. I want to know, and I want you to take account how many people come up and give Dorn a kiss on the cheek at Immortal Fest.
Oh, yes. That reminds me of the old Petra song.
Dorn's like, Dave, I'm going to beat you, boy.
Watch it. I got the back scratcher. The old Petra song, Judas Kiss. But anyway, it was Rex Carroll. And he says, "Hey, we're going to lunch." I said, "No, I'm getting ready to." He said, "No, we're going to lunch. Let's go." So I couldn't say no, so we went out. And we had lunch. There was a whole bunch of people. We had a great time. We ended up having supper. We had breakfast the next morning. Just a lot of eating. I gained probably about 10 pounds that weekend. And anyway, by the time we were done hanging out, the decision was made. I just, and it's kind of funny because even though I was fighting it, I was praying that God would open up a door, that since I'm retired, I could at least finish out my days doing something that was dear to my heart.
Oh, yeah.
And music has been my life. I love Christian, especially metal. All the genres, all the subgenres. I love it.
So where do you see this going forward even after this year's Immortal Fests?
I have been traveling the country looking for venues that are brave enough to take on Christian music again. But the decision was made. I do have to tell you this because after I was done talking to Rex that day, I said to him, "Okay, Rex, so then it's good for me to put up a post on all the Christian metal sites saying that I will be exclusively booking White Cross. And he said, yep, go ahead. So I did it. I happened to be down in Texas the day that I did it.
You opened up a big can of worms for yourself.
Did.
Yeah.
It was 2:00 in the morning. My phone dinged. I got a message, and I opened it up, and it was Richard Lynch from Saint. And he says, oh, White Cross, yeah, what about us? So I messaged him back, half asleep, and I said, we'll talk about it. And then the phone rang. We ended up on the phone for I'd say close to 4:00 in the morning.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And then a good buddy, Joe Joseph, called me right after that because he was on second shift on the police force and didn't realize that I might be sleeping at that time of day. So anyway, the whole night was gone. And then it was just a couple days later, Larry Worley called me up and said, would you be interested in booking Fear Not? And of course I'd be interested in booking Fear Not. Mm-hmm. Who wouldn't?
Right, yeah.
So I said yes. And from that point on, it literally exploded. And I'm up to 14 bands and trying to turn them away at this point. But because I can't make any guarantees. The show industry, the Christian metal show, it's a thing of the past. It has to be completely rebuilt. Mm-hmm. And so it's requiring all this time traveling around, looking at venues, potential venues, talking to pastoral staffs about the need to really keep this revival going and reach people. It's a lot of work, but I have 14 bands on my roster. I've had to reach out to a few people to help me out, like Dave here and John Cassandro and Frank Herring of the band Messenger, awesome guy. He has done more for us on a marketing point than I could ever dream of doing myself. I'm up to 14 bands, and there are 6 others that I refused to put on my roster and still ended up trying to help them out anyway. I'm an easy, soft touch or target or whatever. I, at this point, having a very hard time saying no. I believe that one of these days, very soon, it's going to explode, and bands are going to have places to go play.
Oh, yeah.
Because I believe this is a revival that was ordained by God. It started in Versailles, Ohio.
Yeah.
Because of a man named Steve Barhorst who has a heart for souls and wants to see these old bands back out there performing again.
Absolutely.
And so I believe it's really going to happen. Not much more to say. If you're out there, if you're on a pastoral staff, if you ever consider doing an outreach that involves music, we recently had a little church in Pekin, Illinois pick up a show that was canceled with only 8 days left. They picked it up, and God packed the place out.
Oh, yeah.
They were not expecting more than 30 to 40 people, and the place was packed. And it was a small church, capacity 300, but you had a hard time walking through the place. It had that many people.
Wow.
And it just was an awesome, awesome proof of what God can do when you're stepping out in the right direction that He wants you to go. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dorn, for being on the show. And guys, make sure that you get out there, support the bands, go to the shows, buy their music. I'm serious. Buy their music, their merch, anything you can do to help support the bands. And that's what it's all about. And above all, pray. Pray for the bands. You know, pray for Darth Plumber promotions. Pray for Dorn. Pray for your brothers and sisters in Christ. And like I always say, guys, until next time, be blessed and be a blessing to others. Thanks so much, Dorn. There you go.
I don't know the rest.
I don't know, whatever it is
I'm
that
rusty.
People do.
It's been a long time.
He's rusty and I'm dusty.